So, welcome back to Fred from Friday. For the first case for this week, we are going to Tennessee. This case I would have thought would have been like a lot more well known considering how graphic it was and considering like all the crazy twists and turns. However, apparently it wasn't really that much talked about in the mainstream media. And it's said to have been because of the race of the killers and because of the race of the victims. So like the victims, there being two, are like white, and all the killers unfortunately are black or African American. And there are some people that believe that had it been the other way around, because it happened like 2007, that we definitely would have heard about it a lot more, because like they would have, said like it was a hate crime, a race crime. And so yeah, with that being said, before I start, it does take place in Tennessee, Knoxville to be specific. So if anybody was like alive during that time and like you lived in the area or you knew anybody involved in the case, whether it be victims or killers, definitely know what you think down below. Try to be respectful because of YouTube guidelines. And so with that being said, I'm gonna quit my rambling and let's go and get started. So we're gonna start off with Shannon. Shannon Gail Christian was born on April 29th, 1985 in Texas. In 1997, she would move to Tennessee. Of course, she eventually graduated high school and then would go on to attend the University of Tennessee, where she was playing golf and studying sociology. So in November of 2006, she starts dating this guy by the name of Christopher Hugh Newsom Jr., so named after his father, but apparently he went by Chris. And so Chris was said to have been born on September 21st, 1983. Apparently, he was playing baseball in high school, and apparently was like really good, but had to stop, unfortunately, due to like an injury, which hear about is common, stopping a lot of people's careers. He would go on to attend Pellissippi State Technical Community College. And then after he graduated, he then goes on to do carpentry, which apparently was part of the family business. So on the fateful day of January 6th, 2007, Shannon and Chris, I might go back and forth between the two, but I am talking about the same person. So if I do notice that, if I do that, I do apologize in advance, but I am talking about the same person. So Shannon and Chris, they're planning on going to a friend's birthday party. And then apparently Chris was hanging out with a friend doing some golf, because apparently they both like to do golf. And then he went to that friend's house, like, hang out. And then the friend had apparently, like, left. And so then Chris was there by himself. And then Shannon had apparently picked him up. And then they're apparently, like, hugging, as couples do. And so, unfortunately, they were seen, like, hugging. And then they wound up getting, like, carjacked by this group of people. And then they were shoved into they were shoved to the back of Shannon's SUV. And so, forgive me in advance because there's like 5 names. There's Latavius Cobbins, you got LaMarcus Davison, Vanessa Coleman, Eric Boyd, and George Thomas. Latavius Darnell Cobbins was born December 20th, 1982. George Giovanni Thomas was born January 23rd, 1983. LaMarcus Duvall Davison was born June 13th, 1981. Eric Dwayne Boyd was born on February 19th, 1972. Vanessa Lynn Coleman was born June 29th, 1988. And so, a little bit of a criminal history on the group. So apparently LaMarcus had just got out of jail way back in like August of 2006. Remember, this is January 2007, so not even a full like 5 months ago. He just got out after he served like 5 years for carjacking and robbery. And so Latavius, apparently he did some time in New York State. Don't know what exact city, but New York State, for apparently 3rd-degree robbery. So apparently the group was smoking PCP that night, which apparently is Mary Jane cigarettes. Okay, Mary Jane, but like in cigarette form. And apparently you put like dry embalming fluid on it, but you like let it dry and then you smoke it. So that's how apparently the version of PCP they had. And apparently it was LaMarcus that apparently decided to we're going to carjack somebody that night. So then, of course, this is where things get a little dark, if they haven't gotten dark already. So apparently LaMarcus has a house that he is renting out, and the group decides we're going to take the two back to the house that LaMarcus is renting out. Chris, unfortunately, does apparently get violated by apparently one of the men, believed to be Eric Boyd, because it later came out that he had male porn on his phone, so they believe it was him, but they don't know for sure. And apparently a foreign object. This is anally. The 4 men take Chris, like I said, to nearby train tracks. Vanessa is is still at the house, and she apparently is supposed to watch Shannon to make sure that she doesn't get away. Because obviously she's left home alone, she could easily just run out and go to a neighbor. As far as we know, she wasn't subdued. Anyway, so yeah, Vanessa's supposed to be there and make sure like that doesn't happen. Because then this whole cover's blown. So like I said, they're taking Chris to the train tracks. They make him dress in everything except like apparently his underwear. So except like a shirt and underwear. And then they put a dog leash on him, and they make him walk barefoot along the tracks. So they then blindfolded him, gagged him with a sock, tied his hands and feet behind his back, and then apparently he was like on his knees when this happened. Apparently they shot him like 3 times. So like in the back and in the head, and apparently he was somehow still alive. They saw that he was breathing, and they shot him in the neck. So that third shot in the neck apparently is what ultimately killed Chris. So of course, now that Chris is dead, they apparently set his body on fire to like dispose of evidence. Yes, so they set his fire, oh my gosh, they set his body on fire to dispose of evidence, and they go back to the rented house. Of course, Shannon and Vanessa, they're still there. Vanessa didn't call police, even though she technically could have, because, she was home alone. Well, it's not her home, but, she was there just with Shannon, no other male, so she technically could have, but she didn't. So, that's why I don't like Vanessa. So yeah, Shannon apparently is sadly violated multiple times by pretty much just said to be every member of the group by foreign objects, and also obviously, so it wasn't just the men violating her themselves with their penises, but also with foreign objects. And apparently there was a table leg from the kitchen that they said they had used to violate her, allegedly. And of course, apparently she had asked Latavius why they were doing all this, and Latavius had apparently said that they were doing it, I'm doing this against my will too, and that it's literally all because of LaMarcus, because who knows what he'll do if I refuse to do this to you. So then of course they poured bleach down her throat, dispose of evidence, because like I said, they're over here violating her orally, anally, and vaginally, so obviously dispose of evidence in the mouth, because apparently some of them had disposed of their semen in her, so obviously that's evidence, because DNA and shit. And then also rubbed it in the genital areas. And so her body was apparently put into trash bags, and then eventually a big trash can in the kitchen, which they show at the trial. And then tests that were later done would show that apparently she was alive when she was put into the trash can, and apparently just died of suffocation. So of course by this point, the family is of course looking for their loved ones, but they don't know that Shannon or Chris are obviously dead at this point. But at least it's good on them for at least searching this quick, because it's not like them that they missed this party, what happened. So they went to the apartment where Chris apparently was last seen at, and Shannon's mom would have a bad feeling. She goes and tells police what happens, or tries to report them missing, but the police is you gotta wait 24 hours, because they are adults. And so LaMarcus apparently stole some items from Shannon's car to give to his girlfriend at the time, and apparently this is an iPod, a teddy bear, a phone charger, shoes, purse, and a camera. And apparently there was also a baseball cap in the car that belonged to Chris, which would make sense because that is her boyfriend. And apparently there were photos, I don't know if it was just of Shannon or if it was her family, but apparently those photos were taken and ripped and burnt. So then on the 7th, around noon, because this all happened in the early hours in the morning, the murders themselves happened the murder of Chris is believed to happen 2 a.m. And apparently, so a road worker is working and he finds Chris's body. Obviously, you gotta call it into police. It's called into police, and the sheriff is there. And apparently, sadly, Chris and the sheriff's son were actually friends. So even though his body was burnt, he was still able to identify Chris. And apparently, it was only because of his eye. Only because of his eyes. So I don't know if his eyes just had that unique color to them, or it's just somebody so long, you just know their eyes. But either way, that was pretty sad. So then, of course, it comes back that Chris is dead. So then Shannon's mom, she's over here well, who's to say Shannon ain't dead too? So then she goes and investigates. And then they go find, they go pin the cell phone records of where their daughter's last seen at. And they go see that daughter was last seen over in this area. And they find her car abandoned over 2 blocks away. They find a paper in the car that apparently had a fingerprint that belonged to LaMarcus, and LaMarcus does have a prison record, so his name does pull up. They go, and then police go over to the house that LaMarcus was renting out. And so police go over to the house on the 9th, and apparently they do find Shannon's body, because apparently it was still in that trash can. They hadn't disposed of it yet, which is good, because they found the body, but yeah. And apparently what was sad was apparently they saw an arm and had their guns drawn because they thought it was somebody that was alive and could possibly hurt them. But that obviously, I could bet they weren't expecting that. And so LaMarcus, his fingerprints are found there, which would make sense because like he's the one that's renting the place out, but like other members too, so that kind of ties him to the scenario list a little bit. His semen is found inside of Shannon and on her jeans, whereas his half brother, which apparently was like Latalvis, apparently they're like half brothers. Latalvis' semen was found in her mouth and on her sweater. So yeah, they both guilty of at least rape. Because, yeah. And then also at the house, apparently they found footprints of the group that apparently matched the group, and shell casings to the gun that killed Chris. So apparently around this time, Eric apparently was borrowing a car from a female cousin of his, and I guess he had the car long enough where she really needed it back, but either way, it's her car, so you know, she ain't gotta explain herself. So she wants the car back, and he's like, it's messed up, and it's at my mom's house. So of course I can imagine she's pissed, because like, how did you mess up the car that I let you borrow? And so then she finds the car. She notices there are fluids coming out of the car. Didn't specify what the fluids were, but apparently there were fluids coming out of the car. And then apparently she gets into the driver's seat, because again, it's her car. And she notices that there's a bag of bullets under the driver's seat. And apparently she just threw it away, and she wanted nothing to do with it. Eric and LaMarcus, apparently they go over to a female friend's house, because apparently it was her birthday, and it was like also her birthday party, and he asked like, hey, can we stay with y'all for a couple days? And she says yes until she sees their face on the news and realizes they're wanted for murder. So understandably, she wants nothing to do with it. She doesn't call police, but she says, y'all gotta go, because I'm not trying to get involved in this. So they leave. Apparently they go stay in a ditch for a little bit, and Eric asked, can he get a ride out of town? So basically like to get away. And I heard nothing back after that, so I don't know if that friend like knew like why they need that ride out of town, but it seems like they didn't get it. So good on that part. They decided to break into an apartment that apparently had like a house that had a for rent sign. Nobody was in it obviously, because you know it's for rent, right? And so then they break in. LaMarcus is like, I can't go out and get food because my face is well known to the police and it's in the media, and you would have a better chance because, you know, apparently, I guess his record wasn't as bad. So then Eric is going out and getting food when he just so happens to get stopped by the police. So, of course, police, I assume that this man is just walking and police see him and they decide we're going to question you for a bit. And so he denies knowing LaMarcus, even though there's a whole ass warrant out for his arrest because, like, again, I assume, like, I don't think Eric's face is really shown in the media yet. But obviously, the police are like, we know that you know LaMarcus. Like, we know, okay? And so then he's like, you know, okay, fine. So then he guides them back to the house, the rented house that they broke in. LaMarcus is arrested, and apparently he's wearing Christian shoes. Not Christian, sorry. Chris, the male victim, his shoes, even though Chris's shoes are too small. So, we can only imagine how that looks. So then, LaMarcus, they're obviously both arrested, and LaMarcus, of course, denies his whereabouts and even his involvement in the murders. So then they find a library book that apparently was rented under George Thomas's name, and apparently it was rented in Kentucky. Now, this is in Tennessee, so, like, we're bringing a whole other state into this now. So the police get a tip that Latalvius, because he still hasn't been arrested yet, it's just LaMarcus and Eric at this point, that Latalvius is in Kentucky, and basically the things that he had done, and apparently this is from when Latalvius had called a friend, and I guess decided to confess. You're gonna see my name in the news anyway, so this is what I did. So then they find, so they're in Kentucky. They do eventually find Latalvius and George, and they find out that he's staying under a friend's roof. Now, whether the friend knew whether or not about the murders and that they're hiding out from, like, Tennessee police, we don't know. But either way, they're staying at this friend's house. They somehow call the friend, and it's like, hey, you have 2 wanted murderers in your house. Can you, like, get out so we can arrest them? And this person was just willing. They was like, I guess so. So then they wait till this person left the house so they don't get hurt. Because again, they were involved, so we don't want to hurt them. And then after the person that actually owns or rents, or the person that's actually living there, once they dip, then the police swarm in and arrest Latalvius and George. So now we just gotta go get Vanessa's ass from wherever she's at. And it said that they were actually keeping track of the Knoxville news, because remember, this did take place in Knoxville. And so obviously a murder that gruesome, there's going to be news reports about it, in which there were. Not a lot, but there were. And so I guess they were just trying to keep track of the case and see, like, if there were any updates, see if their names had been connected. Because prior to this, they didn't even know the victims. So they were trying to figure out how long it would be before our names get caught up in it. So Vanessa is actually eventually found. She's not even arrested. She was actually seen as, like, a victim herself. But I guess, like, a surviving victim. And put into, like, witness protection to see, because they thought, like, she was a valuable witness. And then apparently she talked and they realized, okay, this bitch is just as guilty as the men, which I'm glad they realized that. So then after that, she's like, yeah, I was there when the murders happened, but I did not participate. So, you know, if I didn't participate, I can't get as harsh a sentence as those who did. I guess that was her mindset. And apparently there was like a diary entry from like July 9th, which I normally don't include diary entries, but apparently she was talking about how like, how fun the night of the murder was, and apparently how it's going to be a crazy year, which it is, but I guess just not in the way she expected. So as you can imagine, with this, like I said, killers being black, victims being white, you had white supremacist groups come out, because you know this is Tennessee. You had white supremacist groups coming out saying that, you know, this is a race crime, this is a hate crime against white people, and then apparently this was later proven to like not be true. I don't know how it was to be proven, but apparently it was. And then in April 2008, so we go into a whole new year now, that's when the trial finally begins. Eric originally gets 18 years, only 18 years for his involvement, and this is only because they didn't know his full involvement yet, if that makes sense. And so, in 2008, doesn't say when, but apparently a garbage company would buy the land where the house, where the murders happened at, and they decided to demolish the house and use it for their company. However, apparently if you go there to this day, there is still a memorial for Christian and Shannon, so that was nice of them. So, in August of 2009, apparently Latavius was sentenced to first-degree murder for both of the murders. So obviously that's going to be a heavy sentence. And then apparently he was acquitted of the rape of Shannon and got life without parole, but also her family also wanted the death penalty. So in October of 2009, LaMarcus, who said had been pretty much the leader of this entire group of 5 right here, he gets charged with murder, first-degree felony murder, and apparently felicitation of rape. And apparently, understandably, there was like a high demand for the death penalty for him. However, he only got 80 years. And so in December, we're still in 2009, George apparently was charged with 12 counts of murder. Not 2, but 12. And apparently 2 counts of premeditated murder. Now, I don't know where the other, 10 people came from. I guess they were trying to do anything to get, George to make sure he go to jail. Even though I feel like 2 counts of murder in Tennessee should have been enough. But he got life without parole, so he's put away for a good minute. So then, of course, now we get to Vanessa's trial. So Vanessa was found not guilty for the murder of Chris, but apparently she was found guilty for murder, kidnap, rape, and apparently theft regarding Shannon's murder and all that stuff. So then she was sentenced to 53 years. So Shannon would have a foundation and memorial golf tournament that's made in memory of her. Since, remember, like I said in the beginning, she played golf. And then apparently the foundation has a scholarship, and apparently it's eligible for anybody that is going to attend the University of Tennessee. So that's good. And then Chris, apparently, like I said, he was a huge baseball person. So there's a scholarship apparently in his name, and they play a baseball tournament every year, and it goes to somebody that is on the Halls High School baseball team. Because apparently he went to that school, he played in their baseball team. So that's something they do in memory of him. And so in December of 2011, all 5 of them were somehow granted new trials because apparently the judge that was presiding over all their trials apparently was suffering through drug abuse, and apparently was under the influence of these drugs that he was getting. People whose cases he did in the past, and apparently he kept connections with them and was getting illegal substances through them. So they're like, yeah, we're kind of granted a new trial after that. And then Richard, the judge, for anybody who was curious, apparently he would only get 5.5 months. And then Latavius apparently would come out and say that, hey, the warrant that y'all used to get into the house to collect all the evidence, apparently it wasn't signed. And so technically he alone should be granted a new trial at least, because that means all the evidence y'all found in the house to use against me is therefore inadmissible court because the warrant was not signed. And then of course apparently that was denied. So in 2014, Vanessa apparently was eligible for parole because apparently good behavior. And of course that was denied because, again, that's not fair that you only served 7 years and there's 2 innocent people that are dead. Because what you thought this was, because again, this is Tennessee we're talking about here. And so apparently in 2019, George said, look, if you take some time off my sentence, I'll tell you everything you need to know about Eric to get him a heavier sentence. Because again, Eric only got 18 years and apparently... Because again, this happened in 2007, so he would have been out. He would have been out in about 3 years had he just had the 18 years. But George was like, nah, bro, because Eric not finna get out and all the stuff he done did. So Eric apparently testified all the stuff Eric done did, and Eric got 2 life sentences on top of 90 years added to his 18 years. And I don't know how much time George got taken off, if he got taken off at all, but Eric did wind up getting a pretty hefty sentence. So I would like to assume he did give at least a good extent to what Eric did that night. So then, of course, Richard, the original judge, the one that I said had the drug abuse and they had to retrial and everything because of him, essentially, yeah, he winds up dying in 2019. So, that's pretty interesting. And then, apparently in 2020, Vanessa was eligible for parole again, But they said, look, you're not getting parole anytime soon. And they somehow made it to where she can't even get parole for like another 10 years. And so to end this case off, apparently there were 2 laws that were created as a result of the murders. And so the law that was named after Chris was basically saying after a judge signature is a necessary, at least in Tennessee, I don't know if this is Tennessee or all over, but at least a judge's signature is necessary if there's a unanimous vote from the jury. So whether it be guilty or non-guilty, if there's a unanimous vote, we don't need the judge's signature, since we all done agreed. And then the Shannon Christian Act basically is like, you can't, the defense attorney can't make the victim look bad in terms of helping your client, unless like the victim was like an abuser and our killer in the situation just snapped. I feel like those cases would be an exception, obviously, because like you need to mention like, hey, I was abused. But as far as this case, obviously that wasn't the case. These people didn't even know each other, because apparently Latavius was trying to say that Shannon and Chris had bought drugs from him in the past, and that Shannon had even offered her body. So all the things that these men did to her apparently were consensual, and that she asked for it. Basically trying to say a bunch of horrible things about her, because again, she can't speak for herself because she's no longer here. Now those laws are in place, at least in Tennessee. Y'all can't do that no more. So yeah, with that being said, that is the case of the Newsom murders that happened in Knoxville back in 2007. Like I said, if you were alive or if you know anybody that was alive back then, definitely let me know. Definitely know your thoughts down below in this case. You think it was a hate crime, racial crime, people were trying to say. I definitely have my thoughts on that. I definitely have my thoughts on it. I'm glad that at least everybody that we know at least is involved is in jail and should still be in jail for pretty much until they're dead. Unless they like break out or like get released for like, again, good behavior apparently, like in Vanessa's case. And so, yeah, with that being said, that's all I have for this case. This case is for Friday. I'm here for you guys 3 times every Friday, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
So if I play dead, will you regret everything that you did, that you said? I don't think you understand what you're doing, and my heart's black and blue from the bruising. I feel like when I'm with you I'm losing. I feel like you think that this amusing, sitting there gaslighting and confusing. Was it me? Is it me? Am I deluded? I'm the one who's always sorry, the conclusion. Even though I offer all of the solutions, I wish you loved me like I love you, it's stupid. When I'm alone with you I never feel lucid.